Police officers, what is the most ridiculous call that somehow ended with the caller in cuffs? Story 1. I was the responding officer for a call where a woman claimed her neighbour stole her sunshine. Not solar panels, not yard equipment, sunshine. She pointed at the sky like it personally owed her an explanation. I asked what she meant. She said his new tree was blocking her God-given rays, and she wanted him arrested for theft of natural resources. While I was trying to process that sentence, she marched onto his property, broke a branch off the tree, and started yelling that she was reclaiming what was hers. The neighbour filmed the entire thing. When I explained she had just vandalised his property in front of a police officer, she gasped and said, "You're arresting the wrong victim." I disagreed. The cuffs went on while she lectured me about tree laws she invented on the spot. Story 2. I once answered a call from a woman who claimed a coffee shop had poisoned her. She was pacing outside, pointing at her cup and shouting at anyone who walked by. I asked what kind of poison she thought it was. She said it tasted like almond. The drink was almond milk. When I told her that, she yelled, "So you admit it's poison?" The barista explained she ordered almond milk 3 times. She screamed that she would not be gaslit by dairy alternatives. Then she stormed inside, grabbed the tip jar, and tried to leave with it because they owed her damages. That turned the entire situation from a complaint into theft in under 10 seconds. When I arrested her, she shouted that she was allergic to consequences. Story 3. A woman once called 911 to report an unauthorized presence in her home. I raced over thinking it was a break-in. Nope, it was her Roomba. It had turned on automatically at midnight and bumped into her bedroom door. She pointed at the poor robot like she had caught it committing treason. I explained the timer settings. She accused me of taking the Roomba's side. Then she unplugged it, threw it at me and yelled, "Arrest the intruder." Instead, she accidentally hit her husband, who had just walked into the room. He turned around and said, "Please take her instead." She got charged for assault with a household appliance. I had to write that in the report with a straight face. Story 4. I once had a woman call us because a grocery store refused to honour her rights. Her right, apparently, was demanding that the store open a sealed box of cupcakes so she could preview the freshness. When the manager said no, she knocked over an entire display of chips, like she was reenacting a dramatic movie scene. We arrived to find her trying to force her way into the bakery section while yelling that she was being oppressed. The store had clear security footage of her causing the mess. She told me that didn't count because she wasn't emotionally present during the incident. Unfortunately for her, emotional absence does not equal legal innocence. Story 5. A woman called us to complain that a restaurant refused to seat her immediately. It was a Saturday night. The place was packed. She claimed the waitlist was a conspiracy against her. When we arrived, she got excited, thinking we were there to escort her to a table like royalty. Instead, we found out she had shoved a hostess into a stack of menus and then locked herself in a booth, refusing to leave until she received the service she deserved. She barricaded herself with ketchup bottles. Yes, ketchup bottles. When we took her out, she screamed she was being arrested for loving good food. She was being arrested for trespassing and assault. Story 6. A woman once called 911, insisting the drive-thru employees were holding her hostage. I arrived to find her blocking the entire lane because she refused to move forward without getting a refund. I asked what happened. She said her fries felt too aggressive. I asked if she meant hot. She said no, aggressive. When she refused to move her car, employees told her to pull into a parking space so they could help her. She called that a kidnapping attempt. I told her blocking a business like that was illegal. She revved her engine at me, which is a terrible strategy when dealing with law enforcement. She wound up arrested while still holding the fries she claimed were threatening her. Story 7. I responded to a woman screaming in a park about a man harassing her. When I arrived, she pointed dramatically at him and yelled, "Arrest that creep!" The man was a birdwatcher, a retired one, holding binoculars and a notebook. He had simply glanced in her direction while trying to spot a woodpecker. She insisted he was collecting intel on her. I asked if she knew him. She said she could just tell by his energy. Then she grabbed his notebook and tore a page out. Big mistake. The moment she laid hands on his property, she essentially arrested herself. She screamed that the Constitution protected her from birdwatchers. It does not. Story 8. A woman once called, complaining that her Uber driver kidnapped her. When I arrived, the driver was parked calmly, completely baffled. He showed me the app, which clearly displayed her chosen destination. She insisted she had never typed that address. She absolutely had. Then she tried to prove her innocence by unlocking her phone to show the app history. What she actually opened was a text to her friend saying, "I'm going to say he kidnapped me so I don't have to pay." Not a great plan. She froze. I looked at her. She whispered, "Can we pretend you didn't see that?" No, we could not. Story 9. A woman once screamed at us because a gas station wouldn't let her pump fuel after her card declined. She called it discrimination. The clerk showed me the message on the screen. Insufficient funds. When I explained it to her, she stormed behind the counter to verify it herself. That turned her complaint into burglary in about 3 seconds. She insisted she worked at a bank and knew how money behaved. I had to gently inform her money was indeed behaving. Her account just wasn't. She did not appreciate the clarification. Story 10. A woman called the police on an Airbnb owner because she didn't like the towels. Not dirty, not missing, just not soft enough for her delicate aura. She demanded I issue a refund on behalf of the universe. I told her that wasn't how any of this worked. She refused to leave the property when the host asked her to, claiming she had spiritual squatter's rights. When she grabbed a lamp and said it was compensation for her suffering, she crossed the line from entitled to criminal. She left the house in handcuffs, still ranting about thread counts. Story 11. I responded to a Karen screaming on a front lawn about a chemical attack. I expected a hazmat situation. Nope. The neighbour had sprayed his own grass with a standard hose attachment. Water. Regular water. She claimed the mist floated onto her property and burned the spiritual layer of her skin. She demanded I arrest him for attempted assault. While she was ranting, she grabbed the hose from his hand to collect evidence, accidentally blasted herself directly in the face, staggered back, and screamed. He shot me. The neighbour didn't even move. She charged him with the hose like she was storming a castle. That is when she committed assault with water. I had to cuff her while she shrieked that rain should be illegal. Story 12. I got called to a grocery store because a woman claimed she was being held hostage by bread. When I arrived, she gestured wildly at the bakery section and yelled, "That sign says buy one get one free." They are refusing me my free bread. The manager calmly explained that she had to buy the first loaf for the second one to be free. She refused, saying the sign was false advertising because she wanted the free one without purchasing anything. When the manager wouldn't hand her bread without payment, she grabbed an entire tray of baguettes and tried to sprint out the door. I intercepted her before she made it 2 feet. She argued that she wasn't stealing, she was taking what Destiny offered. Destiny offered her a ride in the back of my cruiser instead. Story 13. A woman called 911 because her neighbour's dog looked at her with malicious intent. I showed up expecting a barking issue or a loose dog. Nope. The dog was sitting behind a fence eating ice cubes like a toddler on a hot day. She pointed at him like he was a criminal mastermind. "See, he's plotting." I said he was chewing ice. She said that was a threat display. The dog sneezed and she screamed. She leaned over the fence to yell at him, lost her balance, fell into the yard, and immediately accused the dog of ambushing her. The dog didn't even move. She trespassed. She instigated. She fell. She blamed a Labrador. She left in cuffs while the dog sat there chewing another ice cube. Story 14. I once got dispatched to a mall for a domestic hostage situation. That phrase usually means something serious. When I arrived, a woman had locked herself inside a dressing room and refused to leave until the store gave her a total refund on items she bought 3 years ago. When staff told her no, she claimed she would not surrender peacefully. Her surrender terms included 1 full refund, 2 store gift cards, and a written apology from corporate. When she refused to unlock the door, mall security asked me to handle it. The moment I told her she would be trespassed for refusing to leave, she kicked the door open, pointed at me dramatically, and yelled, "Arrest them for kidnapping me." She then shoved a rack of swimsuits at me as a distraction. That turned a refund argument into attempted assault fast. Yes, she was arrested. No, corporate did not send the apology. Story 15. A woman called saying her neighbors stole her mail. I arrived, and she was waiting outside holding an unopened Amazon box. I asked whose box it was. She said, "Mine." I asked who stole it. She said, "Them," spiritually. I asked what that meant. She claimed her neighbor had tainted the energy around the package because he walked past it on the porch before she picked it up. Her logic: if someone walks near your mail, they have technically handled it illegally. I explained that was not a crime. She disagreed, walked onto the neighbor's porch, grabbed a package that was clearly not hers, and yelled, "Then I'm balancing the scales. Congratulations!" Now she was committing theft in front of me. When I cuffed her, she tried to say she was doing mail justice. The postal service would not agree. Story 16. A woman once called the cops on a pizza place for denying her medical rights. I arrived and asked what her emergency was. She pointed at a pizza and said, "They refused to serve me gluten-free crust." The manager explained they didn't carry gluten-free anything. She insisted the Americans with Disabilities Act required them to bake one on the spot. That is not how law works. When I told her it wasn't a criminal matter, she grabbed a stack of pizza boxes and hurled them across the counter like a dramatic movie villain, sauce everywhere. She was arrested for disorderly conduct while shouting, "I hope your crusts always burn." Story 17. I once responded to a woman claiming a jogger attacked her with motion. That wording alone should have been the red flag. When I got there, she was pointing at a man tying his shoe. She claimed he ran too close to her and violated her safe perimeter. There was at least 10 feet of distance between them. Then she demanded I arrest him for reckless jogging. I told her that wasn't a thing. She pointed dramatically and yelled, "See! He's running away." He was literally jogging away on a trail like joggers do. She started chasing him, swinging her purse. She swung before I could stop her. She accidentally hit me. She blamed the jogger. The jogger looked like he wanted to evaporate. Story 18. A Karen once called saying the police needed to intervene immediately. We arrived expecting an emergency. She was standing outside a frozen yogurt shop crying. Real tears. I asked what happened. She pointed inside and said the employee stole from her. I asked what was stolen. She whispered, "My toppings." She paid for 1 topping and tried to layer on about 12. When the employee took the spoon away and said she had to pay extra, she called it corporate greed and dialed 911. When I explained misusing emergency services was a crime, she said, "Fine, arrest me. I want to show America what tyranny looks like." So I did, and America did not care. Story 19. I once arrested a woman who called us because her neighbor refused to surrender his trash can. They had identical cans and hers had blown down the street during a storm. She claimed the neighbor's was emotionally attached to her property. When he tried to show her his can had his house number sharpied on it, she said, "Numbers can be forged." When I told her possession of his trash can wasn't a crime, She tried to pick it up and run to her house like a football player. She made it 3 steps. Then she tripped over the curb, fell flat, and yelled, "Police brutality. Ma'am, gravity assaulted you. Gravity won." Story 20. The wildest one I ever handled was a woman who called 911 because a restaurant ran out of ranch. She claimed it was a food crisis and accused the server of intentionally withholding condiments to starve her spirit. When the manager apologized and offered other sauces, she climbed onto the counter, sat crisscross, and refused to move until they restored her rights. Customers started filming while she demanded to speak to the sauce ambassador. When I explained she was trespassing and needed to leave, she threw a handful of croutons at me, like medieval weaponry. That was assault. I arrested her while she screamed, "This country is falling apart." Story 21. I got a call from a woman screaming that her neighbor had committed a felony against her property value. I showed up expecting damaged landscaping or something legit. Nope. He parked his car slightly crooked in his own driveway. That was the crime. She insisted the sight of it was ruining her mental health and lowering her home's worth by at least $50,000. When the neighbor calmly told her to relax, she marched onto his lawn, tried to correct his car by pushing on the bumper, and set off his alarm. He filmed the whole meltdown. When I told her she was trespassing, she pointed at him and yelled, "Arrest him for parking ugly." That's not a crime. Wrestling with a stranger's car absolutely is. Story 22. A woman once called 911 from a pharmacy, claiming the staff were illegally diagnosing her. When I got there, she was yelling that the pharmacist medically assaulted her feelings by refusing to give her prescription pills without the actual prescription. She screamed, "You are denying my right to self-medicate." When the pharmacist tried to explain state law, she swept an entire shelf of cough syrup onto the floor and shouted, "This is war, right in front of me." She then tried to run, slipped on her own spilled syrup, and landed flat on her back like a cartoon. I cuffed her while she stuck to the linoleum like a fly on a glue trap. Story 23. A Karen once tried to report a public indecency emergency at a gym. I expected a serious situation. What actually happened? A man took his shirt off in the gym while lifting. She was standing there screaming that men showing shoulder is a form of societal aggression. The man put his shirt back on just to calm her down. She didn't calm down. She followed him, yelling that he traumatized her, then threw her water bottle at his face. He ducked. It hit a mirror. Staff called us back immediately because she refused to leave and declared herself the moral authority of this gym. She got arrested for assault and property damage. The man finished his workout. Story 24. I responded to a woman claiming her hotel room was a crime scene. When the manager showed me the issue, I almost laughed. It was a single random hair on the sink. One hair. She screamed that it proved the staff violated her spiritual boundaries. The manager offered her a different room, a refund, even an upgrade. She refused all of it, demanded we DNA test the hair, and then snapped it between her fingers like she was destroying evidence. Because she grabbed the manager's arm during the exchange, she accidentally created the only actual crime in that room: assault. She left yelling she would sue the hotel for improper follicle management. Story 25. A Karen once called, claiming a restaurant forced her to eat something toxic. The toxic item was cilantro. She said the taste was a deliberate chemical attack and demanded we shut the restaurant down immediately. When the manager told her she could have ordered without cilantro, she stood up on her chair and yelled, "Rescue me from this place!" I told her she was free to leave any time. Instead, she grabbed a tray of salsa bowls and threw them at the wall like she was staging a protest. That ended the debate. She spent the rest of the night in a holding cell, insisting she was suffering from cilantro poisoning, which is not a thing. Story 26. A woman called 911 because her apartment complex pool refused her entry. The lifeguard had closed it for cleaning. She didn't care. She said the pool was public water and she had the right to swim whenever she wanted. When the lifeguard blocked her from entering the gate, she shoved him aside, climbed over the fence, and cannonballed straight into a pile of cleaning equipment. I got there just in time to watch her climb out covered in leaves, sunscreen residue, and one floating pool noodle that clung to her like it was embracing her shame. She tried to tell me the lifeguard assaulted her energy field. I charged her with trespassing and disorderly conduct. Story 27. I once dealt with a woman who demanded officers arrest a grocery store for price discrimination. The crime? Avocados were more expensive than last week. She claimed it was a financial hate crime. When the manager told her produce prices change daily, she pulled out her phone and tried to dial the FBI. She actually said, "I want this produce cartel dismantled." Before she could finish her dramatic speech, she grabbed an avocado and tried to walk out without paying, shouting, "This is evidence for the government." It became petty theft instantly. She told me to arrest the manager instead because he provoked her wallet. Story 28. I responded to a call where a woman claimed her neighbour stole her internet. Okay, that happens sometimes, but the neighbour wasn't stealing anything. She had changed her own Wi-Fi password. The Karen insisted internet signals belonged to the whole community, and changing a password was equivalent to shutting down a fire hydrant. When she realised we weren't taking her seriously, she unplugged the neighbour's router from an outdoor outlet and tried to run home with it, holding the still connected cable. It snapped, she fell backwards, and immediately tried to blame me for letting gravity attack her. She left with both a theft charge and a bruised ego. Story 29. I got called to a pet store where a woman claimed animal discrimination. What happened? She tried to return a bag of dog treats because the treats didn't vibe with her Chihuahua's zodiac sign. The clerk told her the store didn't accept returns on opened food. She took that personally. She dumped the entire bag on the floor and stomped on the treats while yelling, "This is what I think of your policies." The clerk asked her to leave. She refused, grabbed a stuffed toy and shouted, "Then I'm taking this as compensation." That was shoplifting. She argued that spiritual compensation was a recognized doctrine. It is not. Story 30. A woman once called 911 screaming about an intruder on her property. I sprinted there thinking it was serious. It was a turtle, a literal turtle in her garden. She stood on her porch with a broom pointed at it like it was a demon. I explained turtles cannot commit trespassing. She said it had a threatening energy. The turtle moved approximately 1 inch. She shrieked. When the neighbour walked over to pick it up and gently move it, she tried to smack him with the broom for contaminating her yard with reptile vibes. That was assault on a neighbour over a turtle. I arrested her while the turtle continued its heroic journey at the speed of sadness.